This is continuing coverage of United States versus Sean Diddy Combs from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.
Picture this, you're Sean Diddy Combs, once the undisputed king of hip-hop, the man who allegedly threw parties so wild they needed their own damage control budget, and now you're sitting in a federal courtroom in Manhattan, slumped over the defense table like a kid who just realized the principal called his parents. The judge just announced that courts canceled yesterday because of a juror problem. He woke up with spins, not from partying with Diddy, mind you, but the actual medical vertigo. And honestly, that might be the most normal thing that's happened in the trial of Diddy so far. I'm Tony Bruschi. Tell me what you think of the case in the comments section, wherever you may be watching this, especially YouTube. Be sure to press subscribe if you're downloading us or listening to us on any podcast platform. We're all over the place, so press subscribe so you don't miss any of the trials and cases that we cover for you right here at the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. Welcome to day 28 of what's shaping up to be, or what was supposed to be shaping up to be, the most spectacular fall from grace since, well, pick your favorite disgraced celebrity or previous day of this trial. But yesterday wasn't another day of the trial. It wasn't just another rich guy behaving badly story. It's, of course, a story about a man who allegedly ran what prosecutors are calling a criminal enterprise that would make Tony Soprano blush. We're talking about racketeering, sex trafficking, and what the feds delicately refer to as freak-offs that apparently came with a $46,000 cleaning bill. It's not a typo. $46,000 in hotel damages. I don't even want to know what you have to do to a hotel room to rack up that kind of bill. But apparently Diddy does know. So, here we are. We are many days into this, and the man who once rapped about more money, more problems is discovering that actually the real problem might be that he's facing life in prison. The trial that was supposed to wrap up by the 4th of July is now limping along like a marathon runner who just realized they've been going the wrong direction for the last 5 miles. Yesterday's sick juror is just the latest in a series of delays that have Judge Arun Subramanian probably wondering if he should have gone into tax law instead. Let me paint you the scene for yesterday morning's non-event. The courtroom was packed, as it's been every day since the circus began. Brendan Paul, Combs' former assistant and apparently professional drug mule, showed up in his best I'm cooperating with the feds outfit. Blue button-up and gray suit that screamed, "Please don't send me to prison." He was all set up to spill the tea about his time working for the bad boy himself when the judge dropped the bomb. No court. Jurors got vertigo. If you're thinking, it sounds like a convenient excuse, well, I mean, you're not alone, but things do happen. Apparently, the juror's partner called in with legit medical concerns, and unlike some other recent juror issues, this one seems genuinely health-related. Just two days ago, they had to boot juror number 6 for what the judge diplomatically called lack of candor about where he lived. The defense tried to make it a whole thing about racial composition of the jury because, of course, they did. When you're facing life in prison, you throw everything at the wall, and you see what sticks. Now, here's where it gets interesting. And by interesting, I mean deeply uncomfortable for anyone who still had I'll Be Missing You in their workout playlist. While everyone was waiting around for the judge to figure out what to do, the lawyers got into it over evidence. The prosecution wants to show the jury these summary charts, basically a greatest hits compilation of Diddy's alleged crimes. Who doesn't like a greatest hits album? Well, Diddy in this specific incident. The defense naturally objects to everything because that's literally their job. And through all this legal bickering, here's Combs himself, slumped over the defense table, occasionally putting his head down on his arms like he's trying to wake up from the world's worst nightmare. The man who once embodied luxury and excess, who allegedly required his girlfriends to weigh exactly 140 pounds and carry specific designer bags, is now sitting in a federal courtroom in a light sweater, looking like he aged 10 years in the last month. And honestly, good. Because what we're talking about isn't just bad behavior or even criminal behavior. We're talking about allegations of systematic abuse, exploitation, and trafficking that spans decades. Here's the thing about this trial and what makes it more than just another celebrity scandal. The The prosecution has been methodically building a case that Combs didn't just cross the line occasionally. They're saying he obliterated it, set it on fire, and then charged people admission to watch it burn. We're talking about alleged freak-offs that were essentially choreographed sexual performances that participants allegedly couldn't refuse. We're talking about a man who allegedly used his power, influence, and arsenal of intimidation tactics to create what amounts to a personal fiefdom where the world was law, and that law was deeply, profoundly messed up. Brennan Paul, the would-be star witness of the day, is interesting because he represents something we see in a lot of these cases. The insider who was close enough to see everything but far enough down the food chain to flip when the feds came knocking. The former Syracuse basketball player went from handing assists on the court to allegedly assisting in drug transportation for one of the most powerful men in hip-hop. And now he's got immunity, which a federal prosecutor speak means, we've got you dead to rights, but we want the bigger fish. The timing of the trial couldn't be more significant. We're in an era where powerful men are finally being held accountable for behavior that was an open secret for decades. Harvey Weinstein walked so Diddy could run straight into a federal indictment. But unlike some of those cases that relied heavily on testimony about events from years ago, the prosecution here has receipts, literal receipts, flight records, hotel bills, text messages, and according to Tuesday's testimony, actual video evidence that was apparently so explicit they had to warn the gallery before showing it. Special agent Delessa Penland's testimony on Tuesday gave us a glimpse into just how organized this alleged operation was. Charts tracking the logistics, damage reports that would make a rock band jealous, and a paper trail that suggests this wasn't just behavior. It was allegedly a business model. When your hotel damages exceed what most people make in a year, you're not just partying too hard, you're allegedly running something that requires its own accounting department. The defense team, led by Mark Agnifilo and Brian Steele, has their work cut out for them. How do you defend someone who, when the prosecution has video evidence, financial records, and a parade of witnesses ready to testify under immunity? Their strategy seems to be attacking everything procedurally, challenging every piece of evidence, and hoping something sticks. It's like watching someone try to bail out the Titanic with a coffee cup. Admirable effort. But we all know how this movie ends. What makes yesterday's delay particularly frustrating is that we are supposed to hear from Paul about his role in all of this. A guy who went from playing college basketball, allegedly, to being Combs' personal pharmacist. And his testimony was expected to be devastating. And it will be once it happens. The prosecution has been building to this for weeks, laying out the foundation of their case piece by piece. And Paul was supposed to be one of their final witnesses before resting their case. But now we wait. We wait today as well. The trial will not resume until Friday the 20th of June. Because today is Juneteenth. And when it does resume, it'll only be a half day because another juror has to attend his son's graduation. Because apparently, even when you're serving on the jury of one of the most high-profile federal cases in recent history, life does go on. Kids graduate, people get sick, and the wheels of justice grind slowly forward. Judge Subramanian's goal of wrapping this up by July 4th is looking about as likely as Diddy getting invited to the next year's Met Gala. The prosecution still has several witnesses to call, including summary witnesses who will tie everything together with a neat bow for the jury. Then the defense gets their turn, which they estimate will take between 2 and 5 days. That's assuming no more jurors get sick, no more procedural delays, and no more surprises in a trial that's been full of them. The broader implications of this case extend far beyond one man's potential life sentence. This is about an entire ecosystem that allegedly enabled and profited from systematic abuse. Every assistant who looked the other way, every associate who facilitated these alleged crimes, every person who took the money and kept quiet. They're all part of a machine that operated in plain sight for years. The fact that it took until 2025 for these charges to be filed tells you everything you need to know about how power and money can insulate someone from consequences. And as we wait for Friday's session, it's worth remembering that behind all the celebrity drama and courtroom theatrics are real victims with real trauma. The prosecution has painted a picture of a man who allegedly used his wealth and influence not to lift others up, but to trap them in situations they couldn't escape. The women who testified have described the world where saying no wasn't really an option, where resistance was met with real threats, and where the price of Diddy's attention was often dignity and autonomy. So while we can laugh at the absurdity of a trial being delayed by Vertigo or shake our heads at $46,000 in hotel damages, let's not lose sight of what this is really about. It's about accountability for someone who allegedly believed he was untouchable. It's about showing that no amount of money, no number of hit records, no level of cultural influence can put you above the law. When court resumes Friday, Brendan Paul will finally take the stand and tell his story. The prosecution will continue building their case towards what they hope will be an undeniable conclusion. The defense will keep fighting because that's what defense attorneys do, even when the ship is taking on water faster than they can bail. And Sean Combs will sit at the defense table, perhaps with his head in his hands again, learning that karma isn't just a concept. Sometimes it comes with a federal indictment and the very real possibility of dying in prison. Tell me what you think about where this case is at, like I said, in the comment section on YouTube or wherever you are watching this. If there's a comment section, be sure to press subscribe as well wherever you're listening or watching so you don't miss any of the coverage on this case. It's pretty damning. I don't really see a way out for him of many of these charges. Maybe some, but not enough to not end up in prison for a good chunk of the rest of his life or just the rest of his life. Tell me what you think in the comment section. Looking forward to seeing that. Until next time, I'm Tony Bruschi. We'll talk again real soon.
Craving non-stop true crime updates? Press subscribe now and get the latest cases, analysis, and expert commentary delivered straight to your feed. Only from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today.